So I want to thank everyone for joining in again. Just for those of you who don't know me, my name is Taryn, and I manage Knowify's advisor partnership program, and I also work with our customer success team quite a bit. I'm really happy that we had a lot of interest in this webinar and the series that we're starting with this webinar. It's always great for me to hear that people are interested in working with Knowify and working with construction companies to help them better their practices. And just to give you more information on this specific webinar, what we're going to be covering is just some general information about Knowify and about our construction company advisor network that we're working on. This is actually the start of a 5-webinar series where we're going to be concluding this with an official certification quiz to kind of prove your knowledge on the construction industry, prove your knowledge on Knowify, and give you a little bit more information on kind of what we do and how we can help your clients that work in the construction business. After this webinar, we'll be having a weekly webinar at the same time slot every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, again for 4 more weeks after this. The following webinars will be specifically on material costing, one on labor costing, one on contract management and invoicing, and the last one will be about Knowify's integration with QuickBooks Online and a little bit more about how that works. And so just to give you more information on the format of this webinar and what I'm going to be doing, I'll start with just a presentation that's going to give you more information on a very high level of what is Knowify and what you're going to get as one of our Knowify advisors, as a member of the Construction Company Advisor Network. And then I'm going to follow that up with a general demonstration of Knowify for anyone who hasn't seen it in the past, just so you can see a little bit more about, what our tool looks like on the inside, what your contractors are going to be using when they're using Knowify. And I'll follow up all of this with a Q&A at the end, just so we can give you guys some more information on all of this. So I'll start off here with my slide of what is Knowify. At the highest level, I always like to mention that Knowify is truly just a project management software. For your clients, Knowify is going to be the main point of entry for everything that they're doing on each of their projects. And it's worth noting that Knowify can even work independently of QuickBooks, and we actually have a large customer base that isn't using QuickBooks as their accounting solution. They're just using Knowify as a project management software so they can know where they stand on their jobs and get all this real-time reporting and automation through our system. And then they may have some other manual means for accounting. There's a lot of other ways to use Knowify beyond our QuickBooks integration. So it's worth mentioning that it really is at its core a project management system built for contractors. And you'll see these notes on the side. What we really focus on is this process flow of budgeting, bidding, tracking, and invoicing. And we'll be getting into that a little bit more when I'm mentioning job costing, but that's really our core, our 4, I call them the 4 parts of our job costing to get to all of our real-time reporting. And when we talk about focusing on job costing, what we're really discussing is the ability to get into really detailed labor, material, and then if necessary, subcontractor cost reporting on projects versus budgets that you lay out when you're initially setting up the project. And it's all syncing up with QuickBooks, so you don't have to worry about double entering any of this information. You just enter it once into Knowify, it syncs with QuickBooks, you have it both in Knowify for the sake of job reporting, as well as having it in QuickBooks for the sake of running all of your accounting and financial reports. And the QuickBooks integration is very in-depth. It's one of the most in-depth integrations offered with any QuickBooks app. And it can be both, from Knowify to QuickBooks as well as from QuickBooks to Knowify. In a lot of situations, like editing the names of clients or adding new clients and vendors, that's kind of just a necessary integration. But we also have a lot of neat ways we can pull expenses from QuickBooks into Knowify, so we can work with other apps such as HubDoc, Bill.com, a lot of the other things that people are often using with their QuickBooks and their Knowify account. A lot of this stuff does need to originate in Knowify, such as invoices. We can only push invoices from Knowify to your QuickBooks account, but we have found that a lot of our users really prefer this flow anyway because we have such seamless contract management and invoicing tools that it's just easier to run through Knowify anyway, and then it always breaks down into your QuickBooks account in this detail of each line. I'll get into a little bit more detail on that later. And really, kind of aside from this, and I'll get into this a little bit more on the future side, but what we're doing with Knowify, beyond just giving them some tools, is we're helping in their processes and automating their processes to make contractors, learn best practices to really, beef up their business and make sure that they're running as efficiently as possible. And a lot of that is really organizing everything. And that's a little bit more about us being an all-in-one platform, is that, they don't have to run around between a bunch of different softwares to get their project management. They run everything from Knowify, and it will sync with QuickBooks for the sake of accounting, since Knowify is not an accounting platform. But they really don't have to jump around much. The whole process is run on our system. And so one thing we get asked quite often is, who uses Knowify? Who's the ideal customer for our system? And I always like to bring up that, our first, our biggest industry that we serve is trade contractors. So beyond big general contractors, think, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. This list I have here is our biggest industries to work with. But you'll notice the last field here, it says specialty. This really means that anyone who's working in a specific trade. So like, electrical is very common. Painting is another big one with us. But we'll have people who specifically install, not all electrical equipment, but security systems. And if you're doing that type of specialty work, you probably don't have a system that's built specifically for your business. But Knowify works great as a, one-size-fits-all system. So if you have someone who works in a specific trade and they have a need to track labor and material costs, and they're going to be, invoicing their clients, Knowify is very likely going to be a great fit for them and give them all of the detailed reporting that they're looking for on their business. And when I say trade contractors, this isn't limited to residential or commercial. A lot of these contractors actually do both types of work, especially when we get to our electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. And that includes companies that maybe do large-scale commercial work, but then single-day appointments with residential clients. It's really meant to be flexible, so it's not like it only works with commercial, only residential. We do find that a lot of our commercial clients like Knowify specifically because of things like AIA invoicing. That I just wanted to clarify that when I get to trade contractors, because you also see that we have residential contractors laid out here as one of our who uses Knowify fields. When we say this, we mean more of a residential general contractor. And just to get more specific on that, I don't mean someone who's a residential developer and building large housing developments of hundreds of houses, and they're going to sell them on spec. We do see a couple companies that do that type of work come our way, but you'll see kind of in our last column that's not really the best fit for us. When I say residential contractors, these residential GCs, we're really talking about remodelers, someone you might hire to redo your living room, redo your kitchen. And rather than just doing one trade, they're actually going to be hiring out subs to help them with the work. They have some of their own workers who are checking in hourly to do some of the work. They're hiring out, maybe some specific trades to help with plumbing, electrical. If they do a mix of both, their own hourly work plus a lot of subcontractor work, we're oftentimes a great fit for companies like that. The biggest, of these types of companies are the ones who build custom homes. It wouldn't be a custom home that they buy the property, build, and then sell the home, as much as they are hired by an individual, or they're hired by a client to build the home ground up, and they're actually working under contract and invoicing as they go, as opposed to just building the house for themselves and again looking to sell it. And again, I do have a field here for bad fit and what we call red flag companies. And the first one we always go to is residential developers. Again, we do have some smaller developers who will use Knowify because we do have really detailed, labor, material, and sub-tracking reporting for them, which we find is very important. But what we often find is that they struggle to see past Knowify's fields of contract management and, our attempt to track revenue through the life of a project. And that's why we kind of say, maybe not the best fit. There's a lot of great systems out there for their business too. I believe Builder Trend does great stuff for them. And it's always worth, making sure that the, client's getting the best fit for them. And so residential developers, again, not really our biggest. And then when it comes to, people who are working with commercial GCs, the reality is there are a lot of big softwares built for these larger companies. If you're putting up a skyscraper somewhere in a major city, best chances are Knowify is far too small of a software for you. Obviously, we have a bunch of neat tools that could be beneficial to them, but at the size that they're working with, 9 times out of 10, we find that they're using something custom that was developed, by someone who's building just for their company. And so, they'll see Knowify, obviously see the appeal, but it's definitely more for the people who are working for these commercial GCs as opposed to the companies themselves. Now, when it comes to Knowify, I like to talk about our features and kind of what our clients really like about using Knowify. What is selling Knowify to all of our contractors on the system? And the first and foremost, we always like to bring up is job costing. I'd say, this is one thing that separates us from a lot of different construction-based softwares out there. We have some of the most detailed reporting that you'll find, and we break down every job, not just into the total cost of the job, and not even just into the labor, material, and subcontractor cost of the job versus the budgets, but it can even be divided into phases of each project, very similar to what you would see with the classic cost code. And it can be high level if you need to see it, but then as you see, I need to do better on this project, you can drill down to more detail on why am I over or under budget based off of, what I had estimated in the beginning of the job. And so that really granular, detailed job costing that's happening in real time is where people are liking to use Knowify. Plus, through this, since we have, actual versus estimated reporting, we have the ability to give you real-time work in progress numbers. If anyone had tuned into Tanya Schulte's webinar on this, I went through a little bit of it there too, and she'll explain to you the importance of having real-time work in progress reporting. But that's a little bit beyond just simple job costing of where do I stand cost-wise, but it's showing earned revenue as well, and that's the type of information that's really showing you, where you stand on all of your projects. The next big one that a lot of people will come to us for, and I think this is one thing that a lot of advisors are looking for when they first send their clients to Knowify, and that's AIA invoicing, and then also beyond AIA, just standard progress invoicing. Knowify really will automate the process of generating your invoice documents off of your contract values. It helps contractors stay organized with the whole flow and knowing how much is still remaining in the contract value. Being able to create another invoice without having to look back at anything else. You just hit invoice a second time on a project. It shows you the outstanding balances. You say how much you want to invoice at this point in time. And this is actually another benefit of having the real-time work in progress numbers, is that you get to see how much you should be invoicing based off of your cost versus budget in real time. Beyond these dollar figure based features that I'm discussing first, we also do stuff around custom proposal generation. Basically, when a contractor is creating a proposal in Knowify, we do have a default layout that we set to their account when they start using everything, just so they have something to use. But we actually offer a complimentary service where we can customize and move around different logos. We can change fonts, text sizes, really whatever the client needs to make the proposals look the way they want. In the construction business, a lot of this is, a lot of their business is based off of word of mouth and, just getting good reviews from their customers, and being able to look professional when you initially communicate with your customer is a big part of the business, and making sure that not only they hire you again, but they recommend you to other people that they, that may be looking for your services. And so this is something that we find that a lot of our customers are a big fan of is, as soon as they start using Knowify, every proposal they send out is just kind of followed by a little bit more of a, it's kind of a hard thing to even describe, but there's a trustworthy component to receiving a digital document and getting things e-signed this way. And so that's a big part of what we do as well. And you can see that I actually have in there as my next field e-signature. And this is all managed through our natural flow in Knowify. So you're not just generating the documents and emailing them to Knowify, but the client's actually getting to respond to you. They have the digital signature. You're not having to mail them something. They sign it and mail it back. It's all run through one place. Again, this is more of the one-stop shop software that we're showing, is that you don't need to have DocuSign as well as Knowify. We have everything built in to your system. And then even off of all of this proposal generation, e-signature, and progress invoicing, we do manage change orders in Knowify, and we have it as a genuine change order management feature. as opposed to having to set up this workaround where you build a secondary project that represents the change order. It really is adjusting the contract itself so you can then invoice it at a later date. And then that way you get to track the actual revenue of that project instead of having to merge two in your reports and try to see, how much did I spend on this change order project, and then I use that compared to the cost of the original project. Since it's all in one place, it gives you really accurate, detailed reporting without having to, work around a bunch of different features that weren't built for it. And then again, a lot of what I've been describing is very heavy on the dollar figure flow of Knowify, but I always like to talk about our office and field communication too, because I always find this is one of the most important things that we do that doesn't really get quite enough light, especially in our accountant network. And that's our office and field communication, when it comes to working with the web application in your browser versus the people on the smartphone app. Obviously, we do have the ability to do a simple check-in and check-out. That's great for time tracking and being able to see, how many hours everyone's spending, if they're at the job site, and again, this does give you real-time labor costing. But this also gives you the other story of the job beyond cost versus budget. How many different phases of the job did we have to do? How far along are we through them? Have they been completed? They also have the ability to upload images of the job site. They can submit comments back and forth. And we keep a log of all of this. So that way, when you're looking at a project in the future and you want to see how this job went, you're not just seeing, oh, well, we went over budget, but you can also see communication between your field staff and the people in the office that says, well, this took a little bit longer than expected because we kept having to stop due to, weather delays, and you get a little bit more information. So in the future, you can plan accordingly. And then again, if we're ever comparing Knowify to other construction-based softwares, we found that our interface is just a little bit more user-friendly and easy to use than a lot of what's out there. We build based off of our feedback from contractors. We look to see where they're having trouble learning how to use things, and we really build to make sure that everything is as simple to set up and use as possible. And a lot of that does involve using information from previous parts of the system later on, such as building a list of materials and a budget to then actually order the materials when it comes time to send out your POs. And that's a big part of what people like about our system, is that it's not a pain to learn. A couple sessions with our support team really goes a long way, and you end up saving a lot of time in the future because of it. And then, of course, I'll bring up that our clients really do love how in-depth our integration with QuickBooks is. In ideal flows, you can use Knowify exclusively as a contractor, and you never really need to log into QuickBooks, which contractors like because they are not good at accounting, and a lot of our accountants like because their contractors are not good at accounting. And so, this way they don't really need to learn very much about QuickBooks. They can just enter everything into Knowify, and since we have this really in-depth integration with QuickBooks, it doesn't just dump the data in there. We make sure that everything hits the correct accounts on your general ledger. And it's all very seamless on their end. So, it doesn't take very much once it's set up. The next thing we'll get into is our pricing. I'll try not to spend too much time on this page, but just so you can get a little bit more information on this, we do offer 4 different packages in Knowify. Starting with our Essentials package, which I always like to mention, Essentials is really only set up if you have a one-user account. It focuses mainly on being able to do the contract management and progress invoicing. In our experience, the people who are using Essentials aren't really as worried about job costing. They're not worried about project management. What they really want to be able to do is just send out proposals and get our e-signature, manage change orders, and invoice through Knowify. It won't let you add other users, so it's very straightforward with that. And then you actually can't send out purchase orders in Essentials. We do let you pull expenses from QuickBooks into Knowify if you use this, so you can still get some basic job costing. But it's really meant for smaller companies that are just getting started and they really just need someone to keep them a little bit more organized. When it comes to Plus, this is our next tier, and this is actually where we generally recommend people start their account. We do find that the majority of our accounts are on growth. But we let them start in Plus and move up as they build their account out, as opposed to starting right in the growth package. It's a great way to save save the company a couple of dollars when they're first getting started. This has all the basic features in Knowify. You get all of the project management features. You can add all of the smartphone users if you need, And once you get this account set up, and the Plus comes with just one user included, any additional users you need to add are $15 per user per month, and any additional mobile users are $5 per user per month. You can also add what we call non-access users, which are $1 per user per month. This is just a user that isn't actually logging into Knowify, but someone else enters their time for them. So if you have one foreman on site who tracks time for everyone else, then everyone else could be a non-access user. It's a little bit cheaper, and then the foreman only needs to be mobile access. It's a great way to save money, and we find that a lot of companies prefer to have a foreman that they trust check everyone else into the job when they get there. And then one of the big jumps from Essentials 2 Plus is that you do have the ability to enter the purchases directly into Knowify, as opposed to pushing them to Knowify from QuickBooks. And that also includes being able to send out purchase orders to your vendors. The growth package, again, really mainly comes into play when you are above 50 active jobs. One thing you can always do is close out additional jobs if you're trying to stay in Plus and you are maybe at the 45 to 55 job range. You can always just close out jobs, open a new one, and then when you need to open one of the ones you close, you just close another one that you're not using at the moment and open the other one back up. So you can always manage this if you'd like. But if you have a lot of jobs ongoing at a time and you're going to need more than that, that's where we jump into growth. We do have a couple extra reports for our growth packages. You can contact our support team if you need any specific information on that. They're just a little bit of heavier reports on, I believe we have one that's kind of focused around workman's comp and shows you how many hours were submitted versus each type of service that you have to Knowify. Plus, we also offer an integration with Zapier and Growth. So as much as Knowify is an all-in-one software, there's some places where people do like to see a little bit more depth on everything. And so basically, I always use the example of CRM. So as much as we do have some CRM features in our system, if you want to integrate with something that's built specifically for CRM, such as Pipedrive, then you can actually connect your Pipedrive account to Knowify through Zapier, and you get a little bit more automation of the flow. We also see that a lot of people like to connect Knowify to Slack. So if you have any clients that are getting on board Slack, it's actually a great way to have a little bit more communication automated between the team. We do have a lot of stuff automated inside Knowify, but the example I like to give is we have people who every time a new job is added, it sends a channel message to some people. Then once the job is completed and they invoice, it sends a channel message to the accounts receivable team. So you get a little bit of more automation through Zapier and Knowify that way as well. And I'll very briefly touch on Enterprise. It's not the most, the largest number of our accounts, but if you end up having a very large number of active jobs, we can set you up in this Enterprise account where beyond just having 250 active jobs, we can also give you access to Knowify's API. So if you need to build your own custom integrations, you do have that option. Plus, if you have any reporting that you want to get out of Knowify that isn't offered, as the default setting to Knowify, you can actually put in a request with our team. If the information is in Knowify, then we can output it into a report, and that's something that we offer specifically for Enterprise accounts. And so you see the big white pricing here. That's all actually what our pricing would be on an annual basis. So this is the monthly equivalent. And then the little asterisk numbers here are actually the monthly pricing. And I bring this up because we do offer a discount for advisors that is a 20% discount on any of our monthly pricing. So what you see here as our yearly pricing is actually what you get as a base on all of these packages as an advisor. And I'll cover that a little bit more in this page that's on what your benefits as a Knowify advisor would be. So the first thing we set up for you is a free Knowify account. You can set this up at any time. Basically, it's just used as a portal for you to be able to demo your clients. You can test things in Knowify. You can connect it to a QuickBooks account if you want to connect to your QBOA. That works. And we actually have advisors here and there ask about using it for their practice. You actually absolutely can do that. We have a lot of different billing styles and contract management styles. So if you think it's something that'll work and help you organize your business a little bit, by all means, we're always happy to help you learn a little bit more about how that works. And the account's free, so there's not any kind of cost associated with it for you. And again, very similar to your QBOA account, this will actually give you access to your clients' accounts for free. So I showed you a little bit about our user breakdown and our pricing on the previous screen. Basically, you won't count as one of the users in your client's accounts, so they don't have to worry about paying extra to give you access. And we do this because we want to encourage your clients to give you access to Knowify, so you can help them and help map their QuickBooks, help troubleshoot anything around, oh, how come I'm pushing this to the wrong account every time? It says, oh, well, here's how you have this in your settings. And anything else along those lines. We want you guys to be as proficient in using Knowify as we are, so you're a resource to your clients as much as we are. Then we also have two different reseller benefits we can offer you as a Knowify advisor. One, as part of our CCAN program, is we can give you a 20% off discount code. This is a custom code that we generate for your company that you can either use for the sake of adding to the account and saying, hey, as long as you're working with me, you get Knowify discount. Or if you bundle bill your customer, obviously you can just lump in Knowify with your billing, and then you collect any extra revenue on the Knowify account through your discount. And then just to give you more information on that, once you have your advisor account set up, we actually have a way that the client, when they log in, do not get to see, the clients don't get to see how much you're paying for Knowify. So that way, you can manage the subscription entirely on their end, and whatever you choose to bill them is totally up to you, but you'll always get the discounted rate. That being said, if you don't want to manage the billing on your end and you don't think the client really cares as much about the discount code, we do also offer a 50% commission if you would prefer to get a bounty for the referred clients. What we do is we take 4 months of revenue that we've gained from their account. So depending on the size of their account, it changes the amount of commission you get. And you get paid after they've been active with Knowify for 6 months. So we just you'll be receiving a check obviously from our team, and as soon as their account has been active and we've been working with them and we know they're using the system, we're always happy to send that your way. And then this is kind of the biggest part, in my opinion, on being a Knowify partner, being part of our construction company advisors network, and that's getting client referrals from our team to you. Basically, and just to give you more information, we do work with obviously hundreds of contractors every day that have varying levels of experience in accounting. In our experience, not the most experienced in accounting, but every now and then we'll have people who think they're getting training in Knowify, but they start asking questions about, what accounts should I be putting these types of expenses in? When we hear things like this, the reality is, since we're not accountants on our support team, we like to be able to refer our customers to people who are experts in this. And so that's a big part of what we do, is actually send clients out to you guys as Knowify experts, as QuickBooks experts, and obviously as construction accounting experts. We're, as of right now, this is all managed by our support team, in that we get a bio on the customer, we ask what they're looking for in an accountant, and based on our relationship with you guys, we send them a list of 2 or 3 that we think might be a good fit, and that's kind of how we're managing it now. In the future, we will have a site where they can actually log on. They can look through a list of you guys. You can write a little bio on yourself, and they can reach out and find you guys that way as well. Obviously, not very different from the QuickBooks Pro Advisor system. And you may see these little asterisks next to the discount code and the client referral. The discount code is really built under the idea of you're going to be working with us, working with the client, really supporting them through the process, as opposed to just a simple referral. And so we do ask that you actually pass our certification quiz that we'll be offering at the end of this five-week webinar course. And so once you have a passing grade on that, we'll be able to send you any leads as well. That's another part of the client referral, is that we want to just make sure that you've taken the time to sit through these webinars and learn as much through us as you can, and then we're more than happy to send you leads as they come our way. That's the basics of what I'm going to be covering in as far as the CCAN network and just some general information on what is Knowify. But now, just for people who haven't seen it, I'm actually going to log into my Knowify account and give you guys a quick demonstration on what this looks like, what all these features actually are going to look like for the clients using them. And I'm going to start this by actually logging into Knowify. You see, I actually log in through Knowify as opposed to through my QuickBooks account. But I'll hit sign in, and I have myself set up as an advisor. So this is what your account's going to look like when you set up a advisor account with us. You know, I can see my different companies that I work with, and I can click test company to log into my test account, just if I need any more information here. And you can see that I actually have a full admin section. I can connect to QuickBooks. I get full, use out of Knowify this way. And as long as I'm in my test company, I can always switch to another one. And now I'm going to log into my account. I will say just really quick, this account's not synced with QuickBooks, so I'm just going to show you the Knowify insides at this point in time. And once you log into a Knowify account, into one of your clients' Knowify accounts, you do need to log out to log into a different client. It's really just a security measure. I know it's not the most convenient thing, but this way, we can guarantee that you're not accidentally entering into a different client's account or crossing any data across different customers. But this is what I like to show as the first part of Knowify. This is our contract job screen that really shows me my real-time reporting on where I stand on all my different jobs, not just as a cost revenue breakdown, but also a status of active or waiting on a response on a change order. Am I still building a bid? And you can see that I have different contract styles. Here's an AIA job, a cost plus job. Here's a fixed price job. And Knowify is built to, broken down into these different modules you see down the left-hand side of the screen here. So everything's entered into the different parts of Knowify, time tracker, purchases, bills, invoices, and it all is going to sync up with these projects we see here. But I'll start by adding a new job so you can kind of get a better idea of how this all works. I'll give the job a name, and it'll prompt me for who the client is. The client database comes in from QuickBooks, but we actually sync in both directions. So if I add a new client in Knowify, it actually pushes it to QuickBooks. Again, this is all about our bidirectional sync and making sure nothing needs to be double entered. When it asks about what best describes the job, what it's really asking is what the contract style is. Is it a standard fixed price job? You can do progress invoicing on either fixed price layout, obviously. It lets you bill on a percentage of completion. You can manage change orders, and we just track the outstanding balance for you. Fixed price with AIA, same layout. Everything's pretty much identical, but when we output the invoice documents, it does come out in the G702, G703 AIA style invoice. And then we also can manage, as I had mentioned, time and materials or cost plus work, which will automatically build an invoice as you add your cost. And then for companies that are more service heavy, that's where the maintenance contracts come into play. This is actually managed in our service jobs module. And this will actually let you know when it's time to schedule a recurring maintenance appointment, with all of your clients, and it'll let you know when it's time to invoice them for the contract value. I always like to show fixed price with my demos. It's a kind of a bread and butter here in Knowify. But what it asks about next is what we call job costing style. And I had mentioned in the very beginning of this webinar that we prefer this flow of budget, bid, track, and invoice. And that's what this professional mode is all about. You can set up a budget so you can estimate the cost of the job, and then you quote a price to the client. That's your bid. And then you track all of your costs versus the budget, and you invoice based off of the information. In simple and advanced, you just create the bid and you send it to the client without budgeting first. It's quicker to put these together, but you don't get the same layer of detailed reporting, and you can't, get the pre-bid, estimating in the system to guarantee that you're going to be a little bit more profitable. Every other field here is optional. I just like to set a site address for the sake of our smartphone app, so you can check in and check out a job site. I'm going to go ahead and just save here. And so when I start a job in Knowify, it pulls me to plan and track, where I'm actually building my budget. And I'm going to go pretty quickly and simply through this. But the idea is that I can actually start building a project plan by building out phases, where I can say, like, our first phase is going to be framing. And what it's searching for here is different items in my service database in QuickBooks. So I can say, drywall and framing is going to need a list of materials, where I'm going to need lumber. And this is where I'm seeing my different products coming in from my QuickBooks catalog of products and services. So instead of me just writing in a dollar figure and hoping it's correct, I can build a budget by writing in a list of everything that I'm going to need here. It's going to use the pricing from my QuickBooks account. and it's going to give me a budget using that info. The same thing goes for labor. Basically, we assign a rate to each different type of worker that you put in the system, where I can say, like, I need a foreman and I need laborers, the foreman for 20 hours, the laborers for, let's bump it up a little bit, 80. And now I have a labor materials budget for this project. We also have ways we can automate this that we call, a service template. So I could also put in drywall by saying, let's use our drywall template, 200 units, and know if I can actually speed up this entire process of saying, okay, well, here's the list of materials and labor that you're going to need. We included a work order, a budget for a subcontractor, and I can actually put together budgets that quickly using our system. Now, this gives me my total estimated cost. It breaks it down to materials, labor, and subs, and that's all obviously useful as it is. But I'm going to click Create Proposal and show you where the automation in Knowify really starts happening. What it's doing is actually building a document. We can actually use information from our database of clients just to fill a lot of this in. I'll just randomly plug some info in here. But what it's actually going to be doing, and I'll say, it's done today. We should be done at the end of the month. But since it pulls in our markup, our cost from earlier, our estimated cost, all I have to do is write in a markup, and it'll quote the pricing for me using all that info. So that way I don't have to re-enter any of this. I can always round items off if I don't like the way it looks when it initially comes in. You're never stuck on any of the pricing. Plus, we're even automating putting in a description of the work if it was part of the work order that you put in on the project plan. We could do things like include a list of terms and conditions. You just save this in your account. You don't have to retype it every time. And you'll see that it automatically generates a proposal document for me using all that info. And this is what we can customize for anyone who's using Knowify. So we get really detailed different breakdowns of all this information for when it's necessary. And aside from just generating the document, as I had mentioned earlier, we actually do a digital e-signature. So just to show you what this looks like on the client's end, I'm going to send it to myself, just give you a better idea of how it's all going to be presented. We do mark the job as out for signature. We can let you know if they've opened the link yet. And when I open up this email, this would be what the client receives, the project name, your company name. I can actually respond right through Knowify. So I could say, I'm Vin, I'm the client. And when I sign this, it'll actually automatically email you back and let you know that you won the proposal. But it also switches the job in Knowify from out for signature to active. So I don't have to double enter anything. It's just flowing through the system. I can see here's my active job. And if I open it up, I'm not just seeing a budget, but I can track my cost to date as well. This is where I see the benefit of building a list of materials. I can just click order, choose which items I need to order right now, and Knowify will fill out a purchase order for me using all that information. All I have to do is say who the vendor is, and the rest is put in automatically. And aside from just generating this, we will actually, as part of the cost of the job, we'll also generate a PO, which I can email to the vendor. So you can see how we're really getting this automation. This is what I'm always talking about, as much as automating processes for for contractors in Knowify, is that I'm using this list of materials first just so I understand how much the job's going to cost me, but then I get to use it again to quote a price to the client. Then I get to flow through again to actually ordering the materials. We have places you can mark the materials as received, just so should I be paying the bill once it comes in? And when that bill does come in, I can actually just open up this PO and say, create bill. We give you somewhere to store the bill document, and we fill everything else in for you. You can adjust pricing if your accrued cost from the bill doesn't match what your committed cost from the PO was. I can plug in invoice numbers, and I can put in the due date of this bill. And creating an outstanding bill in Knowify will create a corresponding outstanding bill in QuickBooks. That way you don't have to double enter anything into your QuickBooks account. It's automatically syncing up. But if you're managing cash flows in your QuickBooks account, that's fine because the payments actually sync in both directions. If I want to click record payment and just tell Knowify we paid the vendor, this is the check number, that'll push to QuickBooks and close out. But again, if you record payment in QuickBooks, it'll close out in Knowify, so it always works in either direction. And I get an updated material cost to date to show me where I stand. But what we also want to be able to track is our labor cost to date. And this is all run through a loaded labor burden, where I can actually use my employees by saying enter time, and we take a rate that you assign to each of these employees based off of a calculation of, workman's comp, taxes, health benefits, anything like that. And as the time is submitted, it automatically updates the labor costs while you go through the project. But again, it's not just about costing, but I want to be able to manage this project a little bit as well. So I'm going to come to my scheduling module, and I could say, what was the job number? 1430. I could say add a job to the 10th. 1430 is going to be starting. We'll specifically be working on our interior drywall. It'll take us, 7 days to complete. This way I can see the different phases of the job, when they're going to be taking place. I can make adjustments to the start and end date if necessary. And then I can actually schedule a crew on. If I click on this job board, I can see the different open jobs, what phases are going on, and I can click on the users that are going to be actually doing this work. I can choose specific days or full-time. I can choose specific hours if necessary. I'll schedule the crew on for Tuesday, and then this shows up on their smartphone app, and it gives them all the information around description of the job, the location, and then what type of work they're going to be doing. And I can see that right now Paul is checked in, so he's already tracking his time to something else. And we can't even give you a location on where they checked in. It looks like this person was pretty far from the job site, so I'm going to want to touch base with him and see where he actually was. When I come to my time tracker, back to that same view earlier, what's going to happen differently this time is that I'll actually see a list of the different employees that are scheduled to work, so I don't have to search through. It automatically just pulls everyone up so I can get their time in more easily. And if they're using the smartphone app, I can see the entries submitted like this, where today Paul checked in on 1420. He was doing interior drywall at 8 a.m. and he checked in about 2 miles from the job site. I also get to see that he hasn't checked out yet, and I get all this information on where I stand as far as Paul checking in and out of the job. And these hours all go into review, so whoever's in charge of timesheets can approve them, and that's when we'll push them to your QuickBooks account. But we also run a variety of different time reports, so you can actually run a payroll report and send it right to the payroll company, really however you manage it. We have a lot of exports that can help with that. And now I have an updated cost to date that shows me, I've spent about $4,800 out of my $18,000 budget. It's broken down into materials and labor. But again, this is where I'm getting really detailed, granular reporting, because it's not just about, my total cost versus budget, but I also get to see my cost of drywall versus budget, my cost of, I named them both drywall, my framing versus budget, interior drywall versus budget. I can break down each of those into their own labor and material budgets, and even those can be expanded into actual versus estimated quantity of materials, actual versus estimated, quantity of hours submitted, and it all just updates in real time so I know where I stand. And so you can see kind of how the natural flow of using Knowify is giving me all this reporting, and I don't have to double enter it into QuickBooks to get any reporting there, because it's all syncing up automatically through the flow. But this is all the cost side of Knowify. And again, I mentioned work in progress, so I'll show you that we are running a real-time number to show me where I stand as far as WIP goes. But if I come to my contract and change order section, I can manage the revenue as well. So I get to see the contract value, how much has been invoiced, the agreed upon line items. And I can click add change order to include part of this as well. So if they ask for an upgraded paint color, I can put in my pricing here. And the change orders are also available for digital e-signature. This is really big in construction because it helps you get signed off from the client before moving forward with these. I'll go ahead and just make this active since you saw the e-signature works. But now when I hit invoice now, it'll pull up a list of my different line items, so I can put in how much I want to invoice. I'll say, I'm about halfway done with our framing and about 25% of the way done with drywall. And when I confirm this, it'll generate an invoice which I can email right to the client. And for Knowify users in the States, we actually integrate with a system called PaySimple, which will allow you to accept credit card or ACH payment right through Knowify. And we can customize invoice documents too, just like we do with your proposals. You just put in a request with our team. We're always happy to work with you on it. And creating invoices in Knowify does create a corresponding invoice with the client in QuickBooks, and you can record payment again in either system. It always syncs up. I get the breakdown of where I stand on this project as far as my profitability in both percentage and my dollar figure. And it shows me my billed versus paid revenue. I get to see work in progress, now negative because I've overbilled, and a report on where I stand as far as my material and labor cost to date goes. That's really the basics of what I like to cover in demonstration, so you can see a high-level overview of Knowify. That's really the everything else I'm going to be covering for the sake of this webinar. I'm going to get to some Q&A next, but I appreciate everyone for joining in and kind of learning more about this system. Again, all this will be recorded and posted to YouTube, so if you need to follow up with it later on, especially when we are launching our official certification quiz, it'll be a great way to brush up on any of this. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.